Hi everyone, Rick here. Today I'm talking about interviewing. Like the last two episodes, which were focused on resumes and networking, this is coming from a hiring manager's perspective. Let me start with a little context so you know where this is coming from. I've been on both sides of the interview table. Like I mentioned, I've been a hiring manager and I've also been out of work. And a lot of what I'm going to talk about today are things I genuinely wish someone had explained to me earlier in my career when I was preparing for interviews and trying to figure out why some were going well and others weren't. Everything I share here has been tested, first by necessity in my own job searches, and later by helping others prepare for interviews at all levels. That said, nothing here is meant to override your own judgment or experience. Think of this as a framework you can adapt, not a script you blindly follow. If you want to go deeper, I break this down in much more detail in my book. But today, I want to give you a practical way to think about interviews differently, especially if you're actively job hunting. Here's the core idea. Most people think interviews are evaluations. They feel like exams. But interviews are really conversations. And more specifically, they're sales conversations. You're selling yourself as a solution to a problem the company wants to solve. Once you internalize that, interviews become less mysterious and a lot less intimidating. Over time, I've settled on a simple 5-step interview process that works, whether the interview is on the phone, over video, or face-to-face. It works for early career roles, mid-career transitions, and even senior positions. Those 5 steps are: number 1, find out the need. Number 2, gain confidence. Number 3, sell a solution. Number 4, anticipate objections. And number 5, make the close. Let's walk through each one. Step 1, find out the need. The biggest mistake many candidates make is walking into interviews focused on themselves, their resume, their background, what they want next. But companies don't hire because someone wants a job. They hire because they have a need, a pain point, a problem they're trying to solve. Your first job, before the interview even happens, is to understand that need. Start at the company level. What's going on with the business? Are they growing? Scaling? Launching something new? Dealing with operational strain? You can learn a lot just by reading the company website, scanning recent news, or paying attention to what they emphasize publicly. Then zoom in on the role and the team. Job descriptions are full of clues. Look at what keeps showing up. Look at what feels urgent. If you can see the team structure on LinkedIn, you may even notice skill gaps or patterns. And don't ignore culture. Employee reviews, value statements, podcasts, webinars, these all tell what the company actually rewards and cares about. The goal here isn't to memorize facts. The goal is to walk into the interview with a working hypothesis. I believe this is the problem they are trying to solve. Everything else builds on that. Step 2, gain confidence. Confidence doesn't come from positive thinking. It comes from evidence. Once you understand the likely need, your job is to gather proof, both internally and externally, that you can help meet it. Internally means revisiting your own experience. Look at your resume through a different lens. Not what have I done, but where have I solved similar problems? Externally, research helps reinforce that confidence. Talk to people in your network if you can. Ask simple questions like, what does success look like in that role? Or, what matters most in the first 6 months? You can also build confidence by thinking through similar projects or responsibilities you've handled before. How have you approached them? What worked? And what results came from that effort? And finally, practice. Not endlessly, but intentionally. Saying your story out loud, even in a short mock interview, exposes gaps, and strengthens delivery. By the time the interview starts, you should feel grounded, not because you're perfect, but because you're prepared. Step 3. Sell a solution. This is where interviews often turn out less than ideal. To avoid that, instead of answering questions reactively, begin framing yourself as the answer to the need you identified earlier. That doesn't mean being arrogant. It doesn't mean telling the company everything that they're doing wrong. It means showing that you understand the problem and that your experience maps directly to it. One effective way to do this is by structuring your stories of how you solve problems clearly. Set the context, explain the actions you took, highlight the results, and then connect that experience back to the role you're interviewing for. Short, focused stories are very powerful. 60 seconds for a story is usually enough, so don't overdo it. They will ask if they want to hear more. I once went into an interview knowing that experience across multiple parts of a large organization was essential for the role. During my preparation, I came across an organization chart that reflected exactly what they were looking for. I added it to my materials, thinking it might be useful. When the interview started, the interviewer emphasized how critical that experience was. That was my opening. I didn't argue, I didn't over-explain, I simply showed how my background aligned. At that moment, the dynamic shifted. The interview stopped feeling like an evaluation and started feeling like a conversation between peers. That's what happens when you clearly sell a solution. You reduce uncertainty. Step 4. Anticipate objections. Every interview has objections, spoken or unspoken. Maybe it's experience. Maybe it's salary. Maybe it's being overqualified or underqualified. Maybe it's whether you are a good fit. The worst time to think about objections is when you're sitting across from someone asking about them. Instead, assume that they'll come up. Before the interview, identify the most likely concerns and prepare calm, concise responses. Not defensive ones, just honest, grounded explanations. If experience is the concern, focus on learning speed and adaptability. If compensation comes up, broaden the conversation beyond just numbers. If knowledge gaps exist, emphasize how you've ramped up quickly in the past. When you do this well, objections lose their emotional charge. They become part of a professional discussion, not a surprise attack. Step 5. Make the close. This step is simple and surprisingly rare. If you want the job, say so. Many candidates walk out of interviews assuming interest is implied. It's not. Interviewers often leave unsure how excited the candidate really was. Closing doesn't mean pressure, it means clarity. Ask thoughtful questions. Summarize your fit in a sentence or two. Express genuine enthusiasm. And ask about the next steps. That final moment leaves a lasting impression. It signals confidence, interest, and professionalism, all without being aggressive. Here are a few interview-specific notes. For phone and video interviews, preparation is everything. Have your materials in front of you. Have the company site open on your computer. Have your talking points ready. They can't see what you're referencing, but they can hear confidence and clarity in your voice. For in-person interviews, bring copies of your resume. Bring notes. Bring questions. Sometimes interviewers aren't fully prepared, and your preparation can quietly set you apart. And in all cases, remember this. Interviewing rewards those who listen first. Slow down. Paraphrase questions. Use the moment to think. Now let's bring it all together. When you treat interviews as consultation-style conversations rather than interrogations, you change the outcome. You diagnose the need. You build confidence through preparation. You present yourself as a solution. You neutralize objections before they grow. and you close with clarity. That's the framework. I go much deeper into each step in my book, The Job Hunt Insider, Essential Strategies for Resumes, Networking, Interviews, and Salary Negotiation. I also include how to tailor this process to different roles and industries. But even just applying this mindset can dramatically change how interviews feel and how they go for you. If you're serious about improving your interview results and you want the full playbook with deeper examples and structure, you can find my book on Amazon. You can find the Amazon book link, as well as how to connect with me on LinkedIn in the show notes. So be sure to check them out. Here is a practical takeaway you can apply today. These will also be in the show notes. Before your next interview, write down what problem you believe the company is trying to solve. Identify 2 experiences that directly connect to that problem. Decide how you'll express interest at the end. Even if you only do these 3 things, you'll walk in more confident than most candidates. And if you are in the middle of a job search right now, remember this: interviews aren't about being perfect. They're about being prepared and being clear about the value you bring. Thanks for listening. For the next episode, I'm planning to speak about salary negotiation. Then it will be back to normal with more talent acquisition professional interviews. Thanks for tuning in to the Job Hunt Insider, your go-to podcast for navigating the job market with confidence. I'm Rick Boyer, and I hope today's episode gave you insights you can put to work right away. If you found this episode helpful, please take a moment to leave a rating and a review. It really helps others discover the show. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to my book, The Job Hunt Insider, along with ways to connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you know someone who's actively job searching, send them our way. Together, we can make the job hunt smarter and less stressful. Stay tuned for more, and remember, your next opportunity is closer than you think. I'll catch you in the next episode.